Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Every Thursday, you can find me also on the Seeds of Liberty podcast and theconsciousresistance.com. That's theseedsofliberty.com. And amazingly enough, I have now finally gotten Dave Painter, who is my other co-host. I interviewed Jeremy Hangeller last year in September, and Dave has been jealous and envious ever since. So I had to get Dave on naturally. Dave is an abolitionist and voluntarist, among other things. He's Seeds of Liberty co-host and co-founder, along with Jeremy and myself. So you can find his work at theseedsofliberty.com. And he's also the admin of Spot the Status. So give him a like over there if you haven't already. So today we're just going to talk about random various things. Perhaps start off with why what we have today cannot be considered capitalism in any sense, but rather corporate fascism or protectionism. And I like the way Daniel Rothschild put it, where he said crony capitalism, saying, calling what we have today crony capitalism is like calling rape crony lovemaking. And that's one of the ways that's one of the reasons I stopped saying crony capitalism as a result. So Dave, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I've been a fan of your show. That's one of the main reasons I got you to come on to our show. I don't want to say it's my show. That's never been my intentions ever with the Seeds of Liberty. If someone better or more well-spoken comes along that can replace me, I'm going to replace myself. So it's whatever. Yeah, it always drives me nuts when you hear communists or statists say, look at like Nestle. They drink a whole lake dry with their water bottles, with their bottling of water, and that's just capitalism rearing its ugly face and or head. And I'm just like, that's what you described as nothing like capitalism. Because from the premise of what you just said, Nabisco. You just said Nabisco. Nabisco is a trademarked and it is a copyright protected business that is using the tragedy of the commons on these lakes to suck them dry, and they're all using government force for all that. So that's not capitalism. That is cronyism. That's fascism. There's really not another way to describe it. It's a light form of fascism. I mean, there's not jackboots going around saying that you must buy from Nabisco or Nestle or whoever, but they are protected by the government as a corporation because these corporations make money for the government through taxes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not outright, fascism. I guess they not complete government control, but they are using the power, the power of the state to protect their industry, to erect barriers to entry for other businesses. And you're right. Just the fact of them using a copyrighted name, talking about intellectual property, is completely statist. There's nothing free market about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You've lost your argument that Nabisco or Nestle or whoever we're talking about is capitalist the minute you mention a corporation's name. That's what a communist doesn't understand. And I think that's where a lot of conflict comes between communists and anarchists or capitalists and economic totalitarians is they don't understand half of the time what they're saying. And so you always have to push people down into please define things. And when you get someone to actually define capitalism the correct way, or not really the correct way because, definitions have different meanings across the world, but in the sense that voluntarists or ANCAPs use it, you can't call something capitalist that it has any government force in the equation at all. So like if I sold you a piece of bread, you gave me money and I got money and walked away, that was a capitalist transaction. If I sold you a piece of bread and the government has to tax that transaction, that's fascist. If I'm forced to buy bread from you, that's government force. If you've regulated every one of your competitors out of the business by lobbying government, that's not capitalism. That's all fascism. Consolidation and state power are kind of the crux of this whole situation. You see, never in a million years should a corporation like Walmart exist. Like it's so big, it makes so much money, and they go into a town and they shut down everything when they go to a town because the city will give that Walmart tax breaks and tax incentives and no property tax, all kinds of incentives for them to come. But when they do that, no one else can compete with Walmart's prices because of the lobbying. So when someone goes, "Oh, look at what do you want, Walmart to rule the world?" It's like, no, because if Walmart couldn't force you to buy their products, then you're done. But when they go into a town and everyone else has to shut down and they're the only place to go to, what's the difference?
Yeah, a lot of people come from the the Occupy Wall Street people, or I guess people just generally against corporations in general, and they tend to associate people who criticize the state with those who criticize corporations. And for me, I have to, or business in general, because we have to make the delineation that I'm not against businesses, right? Because like you just said, businesses cannot force you to buy their product, right? And selling, growing your business, to whatever proportion you can do is not necessarily a wicked thing, right? But once you use protectionism and favoritism from specialized laws and regulations to to control your competitors, then you're venturing different territory. And so you have to make the distinction that these things, like you said, I'm not necessarily against Walmart, I'm not necessarily against McDonald's or any of these big corporations, but just allow them to compete, right, on the open market without any favoritism from politicians, and we'll see who rises to the top, right? Because in the open market, it's the consumer that determines who becomes wealthy and who goes bankrupt. Right?
Well, of course, it's to me, it's the only real democracy. People often equate they often equate freedom in two different ways. As ANCAPs and Voluntarists, we tend to lean towards economic freedom being tantamount to personal freedom. And some people don't look at it like that. They see they're on the other side of the coin, where freedom of risk, freedom of any kind of, accident that could happen in their life that could derail their plans. So when you hear people go, "Oh, the government's going to give me free health care, the government's going to give me this, and that," I'm more free than if I wouldn't have had all those things. That's the general consensus from these people, and they don't realize that that's enslavement. That if an entity can control you that much, then they can send you off to fight in their war. They can conscript you to work in the factories for an effort. They can do everything they want to you if they control your economic freedom. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. It's like, well, I may be broke as a joke, but I still live like a freaking king. I mean, there's welfare recipients in the United States that live better than any king has ever lived. Mm-hmm. In the classical sense of a king sitting on a throne, as the head of the nation, not like Obama or Bush or somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely, and a lot of people tend to attribute that wealth or that rise of standard of living with government, right? As if it's a great non sequitur that without government we would be back in caveman times with clubs and be people dying of treatable diseases all over the place.
Well, yeah, you have this pragmatic look. You have this pragmatic look upon society. I believe by a lot of people, they go, technology is phasing jobs out. You have all these people are unworked. We should be spreading the wealth around these, like Ford, when they have, 50 years ago, Ford would have to have 200,000 people working in their plants. And now they have, like 10,000 because everything's been roboticized or whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. And you're going to say, well, this isn't fair that, this corporation has all this power, all this money, and the top guys are getting rich, but no one else is getting rich. And, people have this weird thing where they think their labor means anything. And that's a big thing that I tell people from time to time is your labor means shit, means nothing. The labor theory of value is a lie. If it was true, then we would be building skyscrapers with we'd be building skyscrapers not with cranes, but with individual people loading stuff up and carrying it up to the top, and as slow as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a lie. The only thing that gives a human value is their intellect, and that's it. And a lot of people don't realize that. And you can call me an economic Darwinist or whatever you want to call me, but that's fact, and it can't be avoided. And anytime someone uses government force to try to avoid that fact is when bad things happen, in my opinion.
Yeah. I used to be one of those people that thought that the ultimate problem that is the problem that is the foundation of the world's suffering is technology. And we just get rid of technology, get rid of the factories, things will be much better, right?
I mean, yeah, it's scary to ponder right now because we're on the precipice of it, Like the internet's taken us down this road, and I'm talking about humanity as a species is taking us down this road that is very scary. Also very, it's not so much frightening or something that you should go into with apprehension, but it's just very unnerving, to say the least. What will happen when there's no jobs because everything's done with robots? What's going to happen? Like that, and I truly think that that's where society will end up. I think robots are, I mean, look at the difference between 2001 and 2010. Mm-hmm. Just or 11 if you want to go 10 years. Just look at the difference between 2010 or 2001 and 2011 in America. I mean, 2001, not everybody was walking around with a computer in their pocket that could call a friend in China and talk to them, So that's like the species hasn't caught up to the technology, and when it does, the Luddite scare is always there, and it does have some good points, but I think supply and demand always is the key here, and as long as there's always a demand for human labor or human intelligence, there'll always be a supply of it, so to say. So if everything gets roboticized, who's going to get the thing that makes all that run? Like it's always going to be human intelligence at work there until AI happens, I guess, and then I really don't want to ponder what's going to happen after AI. I don't know if humans are going to go the way of the dodo or what. I really don't know. It's scary to think, but technology isn't something to be scared of. It should be something that you should be using your brain to jump in front of and grab upon it like a runaway train and just enjoy the ride, in my opinion.
Yeah, the way I look at that is it's like before automobiles, we had horses, right? Horse and buggy. And the one fear was they were extrapolating like, okay, so if we have, the population increases this much and horses already produce this amount of excrement, how much excrement before the entire United States is going to be full of excrement, right? And of course, then the automobile gets created, and many more people start using that, and less people. And so, to me, that just signifies, our lack of creativity. It's that Hayek quote where I think it's economics illustrates to men how little they know they can design, right? So we don't know the future. We don't know what innovations people will come up with. All we see is like, okay, we're on oil right now. We're on oil and fossil fuel. Much of our economy is run by that, and that's not renewable, right? That's finite. So if that finishes, then we're all dead. And that's where people's brains just shut down. But no, it never happens like that, right? There's always, once a resource gets scarce enough and it gets expensive enough, and it's not rational to continue using it, then people will be incentivized to to create other forms of, substitutions, right? Ways to get around it. And that's how we've been doing constantly, right? The amount of people that are fed today, if we didn't invent, the huge industrial machines to till the soil and pick the wheat and things like that, I don't think we could have fed 7 billion people, right? I think that's only as a direct result of that innovation.
No, yeah,
right?
especially you look at a country like India, where 90+% of the people are vegetarians, so no one's eating meat over there really. Right. To a large, I mean, it's probably the population of California, but for the large majority, people are vegetarians over there. I mean, that's a lot of That's a lot of vegetables to grow. Yeah. That's a lot of nuts and berries and all. So, yeah, the market has a demand for food. It's going to happen. I mean, when the rubber meets the road, survival is the game in human technology. It's almost all of our technology is either increase to living standard or a increase to survival rates. And a lot of people don't. I think there's two type of people in this world, and I guess I'm forcing a paradigm here, but bear with me for a second. I think there's two types of people. I think there's the type of people that think inside the box on everything. We have this system in place. How can we make it better? And then there's people that think completely outside of the box and say, maybe this system is completely wrong and we should move past it. And I think that everything has been changed by those out of the box thinkers, it's the nerds in society. It's the people that are the lazy people that don't want to do anything. Those are the people that create things. The TV remote wasn't created because somebody was hey, let's make this cool thing. No, it was, I'm tired of getting up and changing the channel. Well, let's create a remote and figure this shit out so I don't have to get off the couch. So it's always a quality of life situation with human demand on market changes, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And you have this crony capitalism, to get back to our original point. You have this cronyism, this oligarchy or whatever you want to, or autocracy or whatever. It's basically just government power injected into the marketplace. However you want to define that, you get subversion of market demand when you do that. You get artificial demands. You get all kind. Like, just think about this, okay? You have all these people yelling about police needing body cameras. That's an artificial demand. Like, cops shouldn't be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. So if they're not there, then the body cameras have no necessity. So that's government's creating an artificial demand. So some rich motherfucking corporate guy is going to get hooked up with a cool contract with the state or the sheriff department or whatever to sell them and be their only contractor for those body camera parts, and everyone else is going to be shit out of luck on that market. And then you get back to the first order. The market for that shouldn't even exist. So it's like making tank shells or something. The company that gets rich making ammunition for tanks. Like, the tank shouldn't even exist. So everyone wants to say, "Oh, this is capitalism." No, it's entrepreneurs working within a system, whether it be evil or not, and they're trying to survive. They're trying to gain as much as they can and lose as little as possible. So every individual is always self-interested in all their actions. And it's not greed. It's just how humans are. We're naturally defensive and naturally want to conquer our environment.
Yeah. This you raised two interesting ideas. One is when you said body cameras, it's like we have carjackers, right? And we can't just get rid of the carjackers. Let's just make them more efficient. Let's put body cameras on the carjacker. That's something that Larkin Rose.
That'll fix it.
That's something that Larkin Rose is there, right?
Yeah. That's he always goes back to the carjacker because right. I think that's a universally hated person as a carjacker.
Yeah.
I don't even think any carjackers even like themselves.
Right.
They hate themselves.
Yeah, and the other thing you brought up was interesting was about self-interest, right? And in our society, most people tend to think that greed is evil, right? Or you can't be selfish, right? You got to learn to give back
Greed is a socialist term. It's a collectivist term,
right.
Because that doesn't exist in a world of individuals where everyone realizes they're an individual. That only exists in a collectivist, racist, status paradigm is greed a thing. Because you look at like Bill Gates or somebody who's richer than anybody on earth, whatever, or the Rothschilds or whatnot. You look at those and people they have a right to be greedy towards those people. Those people didn't rightfully acquire that property. So you have this thing where people they're all mad at the wrong things, and they don't realize that government force is the most common denominator in every societal ill. You have the drug war. Oh, the cops are racist. Okay, get rid of the cops. They only exist because of government force. Then there's no cops to be racist. All right. Then, if you want protection, you can go to the all-black protection company or the all-white protection company or whoever the hell you want to that offers you the best service. But no, you have to deal with the cops. So we need to fix why the cops are racist instead of the root cause of the problem, which is government force. The same way with most people hating capitalism. Once forces entered into capitalism, that's called fascism. They hate fascism. And the only way they think they can fix it is with government force. And so I ask these people that are anti-capitalist, who has more sway with the government, you or Bill Gates? Honestly, who? Even if there's 1,000 of you, who? It doesn't matter to these people. Money is their god, and that's all they bow to. And values, traditions, all this other crap, they go out the window for these people. Obama's a Muslim, Obama's a Christian, Obama's an atheist. That motherfucker has one God, and that God is the greenback Federal Reserve note. That is it. That is all he desires in life. The man was worth $10 million before he became president. He's worth $330 million now. That was last year.
Really?
I don't know what it is now.
Oh,
so he got into politics for purely altruistic reasons? No. He's a fucking parasite like all of them. So you sit here, what's the common denominator here? Government force. Okay, so if you can tell me we can have communism without government force, I would love a detailed explanation of that, but I still don't think it could happen. Not saying I'm not open to the idea, but if you can show me capitalism, true capitalism, I guarantee you would see humanity greatly rise past where we're at now. I mean, think about the school systems right now and where they would be if it was all left up to the free market and charity. We'd be pumping out the smartest people on the planet, but no, the government control freaks want to control the minds of all their little slaves, and they want to force people into this. You're going to be this kind of citizen. You're going to be this kind of citizen, and instead of being, you're going to be an individual. That's what every school should teach you. Be an individual. Fuck the collective. Be an individual. And they don't do that because government and force is involved. You should respect the state. You should respect the collective because you're part of it. I don't remember signing up for any of this stuff. I don't, honestly. I could have blacked out somewhere in between being 1 year old and being 28-year-old, but I don't believe that I don't remember signing anything to give my patronage to a collective.
Yeah, Dave, I hear you using the word force a lot, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. That's the response that I get when I talk to people.
Behind you. I've deemed that a safe space. You can go in there. There's videos of puppies jumping around and Bozo the clown. You'll have a lot of fun in there.
Oh my God, it's really funny when people, they don't want to confront the reality of, like Ayn Rand, right? You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality, right? So when voluntarists and anarchists try to point out the violence inherent in the state, people get very uncomfortable, right? I guess that's the cognitive dissonance. You always taught to revere the government, bow to the politicians. Consider them like Uncle Sam. It's my family.
Yeah, it's like telling a Mexican that Catholicism is evil. All right, and them going, no, it's not. It's not. No. You need to think back. The Spanish raped and murdered your ancestors and forced this religion upon you. That is the only reason why you believe in Christianity, and any other reason you have is null and void because it's a lie. Now, for the most part, I'm talking, not in every case.
Yeah.
So you sit here and say the same thing to someone who believes in government and told government is necessary and legitimate their whole life. Say government forces evil, and their mind thinks just like me talking to the Mexican, telling him that Catholicism is evil. Or to be honest with you, outside of where Christianity started, if you are a Christian, that idea was imposed upon your ancestors. So British people, Irish people, Scott, French, Italian, all of that forced upon you. So you didn't come to those beliefs by chance or by ration or logic. You came to those beliefs through indoctrination and tradition and culture. And to think out of that box, to go back to what I was saying earlier, to think out of that box is frightful for some people. That's why I say there's certain people that just can't think outside of their box. They would rather die than admit that. Because let's say you're 50 years old and you've been a priest or a pastor or a politician for your whole life. You're going to sit here and tell me that you're going to easily lay down your gun and say, yeah, I've been doing evil my whole life. That's a huge step.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see that, and that's why it's so nice to see when we see people who are, ex-police or ex-military come out and, realize the inherent violence in what they were advocating and make the complete 180, like, the guy Rayford Davis we interviewed. It's wonderful to see that. So, yeah, it's just, we got to continue talking about this because it's so important to have people realize what they're actually doing. And it's not just about like getting rid of drugs or educating kids, right? It's really about violating people's individual rights, human rights, right? And it's about indoctrinating children against their will, because for some people, I guess they believe that if it's written down by some politician, then somehow it's not, I guess somehow it's consensual because they represent us. So whatever they do, everybody else must want, right?
Or they're not
because they're our representatives.
Or they're not morally responsible for their actions. Like somehow when you put on a badge or you put on your flag lapel and you get up there and you tell soldiers to go kill people, you're somehow absolved from all that because you were just acting on part of government. That, to me, makes no sense when you really think about it. And when people aren't afraid to challenge their biases, and as you can see through all the shit that's going on in American universities and God knows other universities in the world, they're taking away this individualism and saying, no, you've been repressed, you've been doing this, this has all been thrust upon you, you need to violently overthrow that. And what good has violence done anybody in this entire planet? It may give you short-term gains, but the peaceful way is always preferred. Always. Everyone wants to go and talk about how nice of a person someone is, but if you support the state, you're not a very nice person in my book. Unwillingly or idiotically, maybe, you don't know these things, but when it comes down to the root, if you think that forcing ideas upon other people is a coherent and logical thing to do, I don't want you in my life. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote by, I think it's Thomas Sowell. He says, it's easy to be conspicuously compassionate when you don't have to deal with the consequences of what you're doing. And that basically describes every politician, right? Like,
yeah, why is
it's for the poor, it's for the children, right? It's for the elderly.
I mean, there's so much shit going on. There's so much background noise. No one likes to sit down and really question their beliefs. They all like to just play along with the madness, in my opinion. And we sound like crazies when we step out of their paradigm. And that's because paradigms are for the people that need everything in the box. They don't want to think outside of the box. They want to think, this is how this is. There's nothing I can do to change it. Let me try to work within the system and be as happy as possible. And hopefully the boot doesn't come down on me. And I don't think humanity is going to change until people get past that and are willing to question their beliefs. Critical thinking and rational thought should be taught in schools at age. If you're putting your kid into a school and they're not teaching that in early development, then you're sending your kid to a school for them to turn out to be a zombie.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't make sense if they taught critical thinking. because
no,
none
because
of them would end up in school.
It's a thinking man can't be a slave. Yeah. That's why, Danilo.
Yeah.
And that is Frederick Douglass quote right there for you. A thinking man cannot be a slave.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think it was like critical thinking makes a man unfit to be a slave. Right. We were discussing the other day in the group or on the group Skype chat. If people at the very top of are the Rothschilds the most anarchist people in the world? Because what's more freeing than controlling all the banks in the world and basically controlling every politician as a puppet? What's more free? Who is more free than a Rothschild? Think about it. Right.
So you sit here and you say, government is bad and all that. And all I'm saying is I don't think government's bad. I just want 7 billion governments out there. I want each person to be their own government. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. Just start breaking it down from top to bottom. Everyone has their own country. Should be simple.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have mercenaries to carry out your will, because you would have to be you're bound, morally bound to whatever action you take, right? So you can't pass the buck off on anyone else, right?
What soldier is going to take fake phony money?
Exactly.
I mean, unless your plans are to build an army, pay them in gold or Bitcoin or whatever, because they're going to want money. People don't shoot and kill people for free usually. Mm-hmm. So you're going to build an army and then start taking other people's resources. They're going to violently resist you. So cooperation is the key. You see, even when you cut away the corporatist stuff, most businesses do act in an altruistic or egalitarian manner. I don't think if the state went away, Walmart would buy an army and start forcing people to use Walmart and become a pseudo state. I just don't think that would happen. I don't think that. Now the question of Lockheed Martin or Boeing or one of the other fascist military industrial complex companies, that'll be scary when all that goes down. When a collapse happens, those people are gonna. They'll be the biggest proponents for instituting another state.
Right. Yeah, definitely. There's quite a few companies that can exist, I think, on the free market, and because they do depend on peace and prosperity to thrive, and like you said, military contractors. I guess in some way they would have to align themselves with defense companies or insurance agencies, but yeah, for the most part, they they achieve their wealth and power through government contracts and subsidies and things like that. So and those are the companies that thrive in war, right? In perpetual warfare.
Think about how much the welfare system is saving Walmart from paying its employees. It really is propping up Walmart. If Walmart, because all right, let's think about this, okay? If there was no minimum wage and then there was no welfare, all right, and Walmart came out and said, hey, we're going to pay people $4 an hour. No one's going to take that job unless they're really up against the wall. But even if they do take that job, they're going to get in, they're going to try to grow, they're going to try to go to the top because they have to. All right? They have to because the survival depends upon it. And when you take that incentive away, you get all these mindless drones that work the counter and cabinets and all that at Walmart, and they know they can't go any more higher because that would cost Walmart more money, and they're already only making money because of heavy subsidization and welfare. It's really the whole deck of cards is stacked. Where if you mess up one little card, everything kind of comes collapsing down. If you get my drift on this, and I don't think a huge multinational corporation like Walmart can exist without a government. And then you have people like the largest employer in the world is the DHS in Britain, the Department of Health Services. What's going to happen when the DHS goes bust? Britain's going to go bust, just like the U.S., just like every nation. What's going to happen to all those people that have, I'm a bureaucrat for the Department of Health Services. What's going to happen? You're okay, well, this hospital started up. We only need doctors and nurses, and we need somebody to run the show. But you're a bureaucrat. We have no government that we need to deal with here, so you can go kick rocks.
Right. Yeah, and it's all about it's all about the belief in authority, right? Because the people, the host, right, the industry has always outnumbered the parasites, right? So and they only get their power through the belief that they have the power, right? That's the only way, and it kind of reminds me of this scene from the Game of Thrones when this guy asked the short guy, the midget, I forget his name,
Tyrion Lannister.
Right, Tyrion. He asked them, who has, if three people are in a room, right? You have a king, you have a rich man, and you have a guy with a sword, right? And you tell each of them to kill the other, who lives and who dies, right? And so Tyrion says, well, the guy with the sword, he's got more power. And he's like, so if that's true, then people with swords are what are kings? No, people with the strongest people are kings. No, power lies with those that believe they have power, right? So the king is not the strongest guy. He's just believed to be like maybe the rightful ruler, right? If that can ever be such a thing.
Yeah. I mean, like right? That was one of the most anarchist things I've ever heard on a show ever.
Right.
People only believe they have power. Someone has power when they believe it. You're absolutely right. You look at someone like Bill Gates. He's one of the richest men in the world. What does he have in his bank? Is it Federal Reserve note? Is it fiat money? If it is, then he's just as screwed as anybody else after a dollar collapse. He's worth just as much as everyone else. So, and the reason the fiat money has value to people is because they believe it. Just like gold, just like anything, really. But fiat money is even worse when it comes to that because it's printed out of nowhere. There's nothing backing it. It's paper. And, your old story of adding another zero to make $100 bill. How does a little bit of ink increase the value of a piece of paper? Unless Pablo Picasso painted on that piece of paper. But,
right.
I think people should read economics at least once in their life, and I think that they should always question every one of their beliefs. Every one of your beliefs, always question them. When you're in your head, I've got this figured out. It's scary for me to question this. I don't want to question this. I want to push this away from me, and I want to sit in my confirmation bias. I think that kills you as a human. That it's self-induced mental slavery, for a lack of better words. And I think the key for freedom is getting people to question their beliefs, question everything they've been told to, especially anything that says you can't question this. And I never bought into anything that anyone ever told me, hey, don't question this, I'm just right, trust me. I mean, that's always a precursor for someone about to get fleeced.
Trust me, or don't worry, I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
One reason why I love voluntarism is, to me, it's a It's a philosophy of extreme humility. It's an admission that I don't know how my neighbor should run his life, right? And it's immoral for me to impose my will on him, right? And most people don't even know how to run their own lives, let alone other people. And
they don't.
And it's really amazing that people, barely get by themselves, and yet they feel competent enough to vote for a politician because they believe this healthcare policy is good, that monetary policy is good. It's like, run your own life.
Most people can't even tell you their favorite movie, but they can tell you exactly how much the top 1% should be taxed.
Right.
So it's like, it's a joke, the whole thing, when someone, like, no one comes to what the tax rate should be on a top 1%. Like, no one comes to that without some kind of propaganda. Like, no one goes, what should the richest people be taxed at? Should they be taxed at the same rate as I am, or should they be taxed more or less? I don't know. No one just ponders that out of nowhere. Plus, that's like a third or fourth order effect. The 1% wouldn't exist without government. Taxes wouldn't exist without government. And your argument about who should be taxed more wouldn't exist without the government. Mm-hmm. So all of that is pointless to talk about. Should government exist is the first question. always get down to the first question on people. Don't sit there and swat at the flies. Find the nest and kill the nest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when they ask those questions, they're still operating in the status paradigm, right? What healthcare policy should we have? What tax reform should we enact? What educational reform should we enact? Whereas it's more like, well, in translation to all that, where should we use the stolen funds? Should we use the stolen funds here, or should we use the stolen funds here?
So this crony or this crony? I don't know. Should it go to the environmental lobby? Should it go to the coal lobby? Should it go to the where do we give all this freedom to? Do we give this freedom to this group of? Because in the statist paradigm, freedom equals lack of risk, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I want the government to build a wall that protects my tradition and culture. Your tradition and culture mean shit. They really do. They don't mean anything at all. And trying to protect them is where evil breeds. In my opinion.
I saw a good Jeffrey Tucker quote about the the wall that Trump was saying. He's saying Trump is saying build this huge wall, right, to keep out the Mexicans. He's like, well, if that's true, then maybe we should build walls between each of the states. And if that's true, maybe we should build walls between each of the cities. And if that's true, we should build walls between each of the towns. And the reason why we don't have walls between states? Because they don't work. Freedom works.
No.
People
Trump,
move freely.
No. You're not thinking about this correctly, Danilo. Trump wants to build a wall, name it Trump Wall, and then before he gets out of his presidency, he wants to say, we're gonna sell off the wall to Trump Industries, and then that'll be his biggest casino ever.
Right.
It'll be like a tourist attraction, the Great Wall of Trump. You're not thinking correctly here, Danilo. You gotta think like a fascist. All right.
I think he's trying to compete with China. He's like, we have to make it visible from space. All right. We have to. If we're gonna do this, we got to do it right.
Oh, let's see here. America can't even pay their fucking employees right now. They're having to print money for that. But let's spend a gigantic amount of money on protecting a border that should be open. All right. I mean, here's what's funny is every conservative in the world will tell you we need to end immigration, blah, 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 blah. And you ask any conservative who their favorite president is, and they'll all say Reagan. And Reagan was a staunch advocate for open borders. So it's like they don't even know what's going on inside their head. Right. Statists are so confused about everything and how everything works. They want to say stuff and then bury their head in the sand because you can't question what I just said. And it's like I'm asking you to explain yourself. All right, I need more clarity to make sure that you're saying something that's worth me understanding. And a lot of people they get so you can see it in their head. You can tell someone's indoctrinated when you ask a simple question and they respond with hate. Right. Or sophistry, or anger. Mm-hmm. It's not rational. The belief, if something is that you believe in your life, and I'm talking to anybody, even anarchist, if there's something in your life and you believe and you're not willing to question it, You're a dunce. You should be in the corner wearing a dunce cap, and everyone should laugh at you. All right? That's someone who isn't thinking for themselves. And those are dangerous and scary people.
Yeah, the immigration thing, I kind of laugh when people talk to me about that, because I'm like, all right, so your car is made in Japan, your clothes are made in Malaysia, your your socks are made in Indonesia, your boxers are made, your food comes from France. It's like,
where did your soul patch gel come from?
oh, this is homegrown. All this.
Oh, okay. You don't gel it up with some hair gel?
Nah, this is all locally grown and sourced. So. But
little bit of spit down there, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you go far enough back, and we're all immigrants, right? We all came from a different land. Like, if you're not a Native American heritage, so the whole immigrant argument is completely bunk. Completely.
Oh yeah, I had a communist ask me the other day, who owned the land that you live on now? I said, I don't know. He said, you think it was the Indians? I was like, I don't know. I'm like 3% Creek Indian, so I guess maybe one of my ancestors owned it or used it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't know. I don't have a running ledger for all this stuff. Like, you're asking pedantic questions that can't be answered.
Right.
They're like gotchas. I don't like gotchas. I like questions that can be answered concisely and logically.
Yeah, I got a question by a guy because I posted on Twitter recently. It says, talking about private property and public property. Private property is redundancy, and public property is an oxymoron. And if your ideas require force, then your ideas are worthless. And so his question was, well, how can you so all force is evil? Like so how can you say like force is evil if you're talking about private, and I talked about individual rights and positive rights and negative rights. He's like, but if rights don't exist, how can rights be moral or immoral?
Rights are legal fiction, but when we say individual rights, they're based in natural law.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand it. Like it's like we're speaking a different language, and it is because we're using different definitions for things. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard to speak with a statist until you get them to define things, because you even ask two ANCAPs to define something, and they'll give you two different answers. So it's but to what you were saying is what he was asking is they're not questions for him to want a more understanding of the situation. They're only questions to prove that you're to him that you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that, I think everyone's got these shields up around their ideologies and stuff, and they refuse to question them. Like I said somebody on the podcast the other day when we had Jerry One on there, I honestly hold no beliefs that I'm not willing to question. Even voluntarism, even abolitionist, even anything like that, even anarchy, I'll question any of those. If something more rational comes along that makes more logical sense and is morally sound, yeah, sure, I'm going to that. But I don't see how that could happen. That's why that's what drew me into the allure of voluntarism, is because it was so logically consistent and it was tough to accept.
Yeah.
And people, like I said earlier, they want to bury their head in the sand and live in their confirmation bias. They don't want to question things. It's uncomfortable. And you see these kids now, they're protesting and tearing down colleges because someone says, I don't agree with what you just said. That's all they said. They gave no juxtaposition. Nothing else. They just said, I don't agree completely with what you said. Oh, you're an evil person. You're ruining my safe space. You need to get out of here. No, those people are mentally enslaved. And I for the life of me, that's what I fight all day long, is mental enslavement. People refusing to accept that they own themselves. That is it. No idea owns you, no government owns you, no authority figure owns you, your parents don't own you, the college professor doesn't own you, the pastor doesn't own you. No one owns you but you, unless you give yourself up.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Self-ownership is such a basic idea, and then you go from there to your labor and the things that you produce with your labor is your property, right? Your justly acquired property. If you produce it or you buy it, or you trade them, and that's all that when I tell people about force, right? What's moral is to defend those things that are justly acquired, right? Your property or your body, which is an extension of your property is an extension of your body.
You have to look up the definition of force, and I'll do it real quick just so I don't sound like an idiot and say something wrong. Define force. All right, the definition of force is the use of physical power or violence to compel or restrain, or it's the capacity to do work or cause physical change. There's those two. And when we say force, we're never really talking about defensive violence or defensive force. We're always talking about the initiation of force. Mm-hmm. Because, like I was saying earlier with the me selling you bread, if I walked up to you and put a gun in your face and said, "You're buying my bread today, Danilo," would anyone consider that a moral action? Would anyone? Even a sociopath or a psychopath, would they say that was a moral action? No. Why? Because it's an infringement upon self-ownership. Mm-hmm. You're stealing something from them. Right. Doesn't matter if they're getting something in return. You're stealing from them. So when we say force, a lot of people get confused and think that, well, we're all just pacifists. If someone's stealing from us, since we're against force, then no. We're not against. We're like a scorpion or a porcupine. All right. I mean, maybe a scorpion's a bad idea, but a porcupine. Most of the time,
a porcupine. Yeah.
Well, think of libertarians or abolitionists or whatever you want to call us as a porcupine. Mm-hmm. When's the last time a porcupine ran up and started throwing barbs at someone? No, it's always when someone tried to fuck with them.
Right.
And once you realize that everyone's a porcupine, things make a lot more sense. And that's why communism can't work. That's why any other form of collectivism can't work for a majority of people. There are some people out there that will give their life to a commune or whatnot, or don a soldier's uniform and go die for their country. But that's not for everybody. And to force another person into that is evil.
Yeah. A while ago, I did a post on anarcho-communism, and I was put in my place, but a lot of the anarcho-communists, and I think rightfully so, though, because like you said, some people may choose to live in a commune. They could be anarchists, but they choose to live in a commune, and as long as they don't try to force their ideology onto other people, I'm fine with that. That's just the way different people choose to live, which is fine with me, and is completely consistent with with anarcho-capitalism. So that so basically, to me, it's more like panarchy or anarchism without hyphens, basically. It's like whatever way you choose to live, or whatever happens after people get rid of the belief in authority, then I'm fine with that.
That's why I majoritively say I am a voluntarist or an abolitionist. I'm against slavery. If you're for slavery, I don't want to be around you. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact is that most people don't see statism as slavery is a different issue.
Yeah.
But I don't care what system you want to live into. Just don't force me to involve myself with that. That's the core argument in voluntarism. I don't care what you do. Just do not use force against me. Mm-hmm. I don't care. You wanna go be gay and adopt a bunch of babies and teach them how to break down AR-15s and clean them and operate drones and stuff. I don't care, as long as it doesn't bother me. As long as it doesn't force me to do anything. Right. I don't care, and that's so. ANCOMs, at a certain point, I just say I don't care, or I'll ask them, "Are you willing to force your ideas upon me? If not, then I don't care. I don't care don't care what you believe. You could believe in Xenu and all the other bullshit. I don't care." and I think that you have these ANCOMs; they do care what other people think. They all want you to be communist. Mm. Whereas an ANCAP or a voluntarist, they say, "I don't care what you are. Just leave me out of it." It's that simple.
Yeah. Yep. It's just about leaving people in peace, and it's like I think it was Chris Duane from the Truth Never Told when it was maybe somebody else said this, but I heard him say it. There's two types of people in the world: those that want to be left alone, and those who won't leave you alone, right? And like you said, most anarchists, most voluntarists are like porcupines, right? They just want to be left alone, and they will not attack. They will not be violent, I guess, unprovoked, right? You can provoke people only so much until they react, right? So that's that's just that's what we try to do when we spread ideas and talk about voluntarism and anarchy and Austrian economics, is to help people understand human action and incentives, and why people act in a certain way. It's not because of sexism, racism, feminism. It's not because of the white man hates the black man. People act like as we were saying before, in a self-interested way, right? Most people just want to get by, want to make enough money to feed their family, raise their kids, right? Raise moral, compassionate, empathetic kids, right? And I think that's what drives most of humanity to do what they do. It's not some sinister underlying reason. That's that's more like the politicians.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that is part of being a voluntarist when speaking to statists is getting them to see the gun in the room. I think that's the hardest thing for them to see is that their actions have consequences, and that voting, that paying your taxes, and all these not only hurts themselves, but it hurts other people, and it's pure evil. And I don't think that they realize that that's what they do. I think they look at it in a pragmatic sense that, if I don't participate, then I'll get screwed anyways. And it's like, well, then it's never going to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2/3 of the people in the country didn't vote for the president last election. 2/3. So why do we have a president? Why? Why? And I say we loosely. I don't have a president.
Right.
There's people that have the power to claim to be president towards me, but I don't have a president. I don't have a congressman. I don't have anybody like that.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So, well, Dave, thanks a lot for coming on the show. If there's any last words you want to give to the listeners, where they can find you, where they can follow you if they want to follow more of your work.
Right now I have my account on private on Facebook for a myriad of reasons. So you can't really follow me there on my personal page, but you can follow everything I say and am about by searching on the Facebook there. Search for the group The Seeds of Liberty, it's just Seeds of Liberty. Ask to join, you'll automatically get invited by one of our guys, and just participate. Ask me a question. I will have a Skype debate with anybody that watches this show right here if you want to talk. Also have a page on Facebook as well called the Seeds of Liberty Podcast. Really hope you check that out. It's a more soft approach towards spreading voluntarism and freedom than a lot of the shows out there that just beat you over the head with stuff. And I don't really have much else other than that. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Dave the Hill. I probably won't follow you back, but you can follow me there. I tweet sometimes. I haven't been as active since I started the Seeds of Liberty stuff because, I'm on social media like 8 hours a day on and off, and I've got, so much management to do with the Seeds of Liberty Twitter and Facebook page and keeping that active and interacting with viewers and fans and stuff like that. But if I could leave with one thing, if you've never listened to Danilo's podcast before, or Danilo on our show before, I really appreciate it if you'd try that. Check out our show. If you're just a peaceful anarchism listener, go check out our Seeds of Liberty show. Danilo and Jeremy and myself, we have a lot of laughs. It's a lot of fun. I think 90% of the people tell me that the only reason I listen to your show is because of the laughs. And I love that, because, you keep them laughing or they'll kill you. So,
right. Exactly.
But I really appreciate you having me on, man. I was getting a little conscious about it, and maybe I did say, hey, you should have me on, but it was fun. I enjoy talking to you, Danilo. You're a great guy, and all of your fans that are very passionate about your show, they're probably great people as well, because I think you draw people like that to you.
Thank you very much. That's I love being on the show. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show, or inviting me to be a part of the show. It's really awesome.
Well, the way I did it is we were in that group, New Gateway,
right,
and I found the two most logically consistent and level-headed and cool-headed people, and it just happened to be you and Jeremy. And then we just kind of, remember, we tossed around the idea we should do a podcast, and then finally I just said, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And it was rough there for the first 4 or 5 episodes, but now it's smooth sailings, and I just talked to somebody about starting a one-man show that'll be dropping every Friday. I think you can expect that in December, maybe late November.
Awesome.
We're trying to kick back up our Force to Freedom show, and of course we share your show every Tuesday on our show, or on our page and everything. And I love your show. I listen to almost every one of them. When it comes to like homeschooling and stuff, I really don't listen to them because I don't have any kids, and I don't really. I hate state schools, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't get into the old homeschooling stuff or unschooling stuff, but I do think that is paramount for people to start doing, is robbing the state of their child's mind. And yeah, man, I really appreciate having me on. I hope I wasn't too long-winded.
No, great. It's a great conversation. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. So if you want to donate to the Seeds of Liberty, you can go, there's through Bitcoin or Patreon. They accept donations over there. We accept donations, as well as the Peaceful Anarchism. I also have my own PayPal, Bitcoin, and Patreon. You can donate, help us out, or you can just like, comment, share, subscribe to the show to help us spread the message of freedom, economics, and voluntarism. Right?
Yep.
increasing consensual associations of all people around the world, right? That's the way to bring freedom, in my opinion. So awesome conversation, Dave. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network, and theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.